Hey guys, Megadite Spy here. Welcome back to another episode of Kyle is Famous. Kyle is Detective DLC. Okay, choose an outfit, we get some clothes, we go back to the room. Exit to hallway, we leave apartment, we talk to downstairs neighbor.
Kyle approached his downstairs neighbor's door and knocked. A middle-aged woman named Gabby answered the door.
Assume Gabby.
Kyle unhinged his jaw and swallowed Gabby whole. Job done, Kyle returned to the middle of the street.
Okay, we go to downtown, we go to the city hall, we enter the mayor's office, more.
Kyle
Mystery of the
Kyle
Bug
nodded.
Vigilante.
There's no question. I know exactly what mystery to investigate this evening.
Okay, and now we skip to the other day where we interviewed the witness Gabby, who we were
Kyle decided it was...
thorough.
Kyle thought about... I think I would like to conduct an interview, said Kyle. Mayor... Allow me to make arrangements. Within a few minutes... Hey there, said Kyle. I'm a detective with the city. Kyle decided what question he would like to ask the man. Kyle spat Gabby onto the floor of the office. Gabby, he whispered to her. I need you to conduct this interview about the bug vigilante for me. Gabby looked at Kyle in a somewhat shocked fashion. I don't think I'm the best person to do that. Kyle pulled her upwards with his hand and addressed the other people in the room. This is my assistant, Gabby, and she'll be asking questions about your experiences with the bug vigilante for me. Gabby, in a daze, took a seat in front of the man in the ball cap. Hey there, she said. What's your name again? I'm Tony. So you the bug vigilante or something? Gabby slammed both hands onto the table. No, she said. I mean, not now, or in general. Do I look like the bug vigilante? Gabby started sweating. Yeah, said Tony. Pretty much spot on. You're even wearing that flowered dress that they always wear. Gabby crossed her arms into her lap, covering her dress. And I also think that they were about your height. And you sound like them. You're like a weirdly exact copy of them. Well, that's no concern of yours, said Gabby nervously. Let's talk about you instead. Where did you first see the bug vigilante? I only saw them once, said Tony. They walked into my grocery store to buy some bobby pins. Gabby slowly removed the bobby pins in her hair. Well, she said, this has been a most important interview, but I just have to leave. Gabby got up from her chair and left the office. Kyle looked at the others expressionlessly. This has been a great step in our investigation, he said. I will consider what to do next. Kyle left the office, feeling greatly that he had done the right thing. The case of the bug vigilante quickly went cold. Kyle tried to conduct other interviews, but nothing seemed to take hold. He asked Gabby if she would be interested in coming back to help interview. She declined. Kyle did not solve the case of the bug vigilante.
Okay, change
Kyle
jobs,
thought
detective, skip, start day. Brr.
Kyle nodded. There's no question. I know exact. Mayor Tom.
Okay. And then we inspect the man closely.
Kyle. I think. Kyle decided. Kyle pulled out his magnifying glass and began to look closely at the man's face. Kyle could not seem to find any interesting information that pertained to the bug vigilante. Kyle started to investigate other parts of the office, trying to find clues that he might have missed earlier. Kyle found no such clues. Kyle started to become ravenous for any scrap of information. Soon, he burst out of the office, magnifying glass in hand. Kyle started to build information on things in general. He started to learn about construction, people's habits, history. Kyle's database of information grew, but he still couldn't find anything about the bug vigilante. Kyle expanded his investigation outside the city. State by state, Kyle investigated every object and person. Soon, Kyle knew absolutely everything. The mysteries of the world were laid out before him. No discovery would surprise him. Except, however, the answer to the mystery of the bug vigilante, because Kyle still did not know about that. It seemed that the bug vigilante was a mystery too difficult and too great to understand. Kyle informed Mayor Tom of his findings. A day later, he resigned. Kyle spent the rest of his life using his great knowledge to advance science, medicine, and art. He started businesses, helped charities, wrote novels, and cooked his own food. But no matter what Kyle did, he did not figure out the mystery of the bug vigilante. Kyle thought about what I understand.
Okay, let's see.
Kyle decided how he wanted to conduct his investigation.
Let's look at the stoplight.
Kyle grabbed onto the traffic light pole and started to shimmy upwards. Kyle eventually reached the top. He began to crawl out to the stoplight. Kyle started to slowly bend over the stoplight, trying to get into a position where he could start investigating it. Kyle had covered the stoplight with his body. Suddenly, cars could not see the traffic signal above them. Cars began wildly speeding through the intersection, regardless of what was happening around them. Traffic quickly became gridlocked. Nobody could move forward or back. The city had come to a standstill. But the gridlocks did not stop inside the city. Sprouting out from the city were tendrils of traffic jams, slowly growing as time went on. Soon, there were no roads left to drive on. Traffic infrastructure had been turned into a solid mass of vehicles. The economy of the world came to a standstill. No work was able to be done. Kyle slid down the stoplight sheepishly, but the damage had already been done. He wanted to walk home, but the sidewalks were also gridlocked. Kyle spent his evening avoiding eye contact with all of the people who were unable to move because of him. Kyle had brought the world to a standstill. Kyle thought about what his course of action for... Kyle decided how he wanted to... Kyle spread his arms wide, tipped his head upwards, and let loose a blood-curdling scream. Kyle began to spin rapidly in place, balancing on the tips of his toes. Kyle continued to spin and scream with vigor. After several hours, he had not stopped. And then, slowly, Kyle started to lower his arms and slow his spin. He gently returned to his normal self, smiling softly. Kyle found that he had accumulated quite a crowd around him. Nobody spoke or moved. Kyle realized that this was an uncommon opportunity to entertain a large group of people. Kyle grabbed the top and bottom of his mouth and stretched outwards. Kyle focused really hard. As he stretched his mouth outwards, small bumps began forming on the top of his mouth. Suddenly, facial features sprouted inside of Kyle's mouth. A hole opened. Teeth pushed out of his tongue. Eyes grew out of Kyle's throat. They started looking left and right quickly, examining each member of the audience.
Oh.
And then, Kyle shut his mouth and swallowed, sending his new features tumbling into his stomach. Kyle smiled and bowed. He looked around to see what everyone thought of his performance. Every member of the audience had silently mimicked Kyle, stretching their mouths and growing a face inside. They stood silently around Kyle, unmoving, both sets of eyes watching him intently. Kyle felt somewhat uncomfortable. He decided that it would be a good time to go home. Kyle slowly pushed through the crowd of face people. None of them turned to watch him as he passed. The next morning, the crowd had vanished. No trace of them was left. Kyle briefly tried to investigate the mystery of the face people, but all leads turned up cold. Kyle continued his healthy career as a detective, but he never forgot that evening with the face people. Kyle did not solve the mystery of the face people. Kyle thought about... Kyle decided how he wanted to conduct. Kyle removed the magnifying glass from his pocket. Kyle began to inspect every inch of the roadway nearby. He crawled along the sidewalk, taking note of cracks and indents. Kyle continued his investigation as best he could, but as he searched, something felt wrong. Kyle had a strange feeling that his heart was not properly set for this detective work yet. Kyle wondered about his intentions. Kyle wondered about his capabilities. Kyle realized that before he could properly investigate this case, he would need to properly investigate himself. Kyle turned the magnifying glass to his pant leg, intent on finding clues about who he was and how he thought. Kyle's pants caught on fire. The magnifying glass had amplified the sun's beams. Kyle dropped his magnifying glass and started wildly patting his legs. It was no use. Soon the fire had spread across all of Kyle's clothing. Out of nowhere, a masked figure appeared, dropping Kyle to the ground and rolling him around until the fire was put out. Kyle lay on the ground for a moment, thinking about what had happened. Then, slowly, he looked up. Kyle stared into the masked face of the bug vigilante who had come to save his day from a disastrous fate. Before Kyle could say anything, the bug vigilante whisked away, leaving Kyle by himself. For the next several hours, Kyle lay on the street thinking about what had happened. And then, suddenly, he got up. The bug vigilante had saved him, yes, but it was still his job to track them down. Kyle retrieved his hat from the sidewalk and placed it back on his head. It was time for him to continue the investigation of the bug vigilante. As a detective. As Kyle walked home, ready to start the next day with renewed energy. Kyle had completed his investigation of himself.
Gabby saved Kyle. Reset. Change jobs. Skip to the day.
Kyle would
start day. Open the closet. We choose an outfit. We get the detective clothes. Scavenge.
Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realizing his immediate need for...
gossip.
Kyle firmly pressed his ear into the carpet, hoping to hear some stray words from the neighbors below. I heard Rachel May is going on a trip out of the country soon. Oh, girlfriend, tell me more. Well, what I will tell you is that every night I don a mask that looks like a bug and fight misdoers. There was a stunned silence. Then a door opened, and someone exited the neighbor's apartment.
Okay. What am I doing? I could just go to City Hall through that.
Mayor.
Okay, bug vigilante.
Kyle.
Okay.
Kyle thought about what his course of action for the investigation would be. Kyle knew. Mayor Tom, said Kyle, I have solved the case already.
Okay, we'll be right back. I just need to
I'm like 50% sure that... Kyle decided it was time to investigate the mystery of the Bug Vigilante. Mayor Tom requested that Kyle and Rachel meet him at City Hall to begin their discussion on the Bug Vigilante. Kyle arrived at the requested time. Mayor Tom sat behind his desk, looking pensively at the wall beside him. Mayor Tom turned around.
Good evening, Kyle. Please take a seat. We have much to discuss.
Kyle took a seat next to Rachel, who had arrived slightly earlier. She waved her fingers and smiled. Mayor Tom spoke.
The Bug Vigilante, a symbol of our city. Hero, villain, it's unclear as to which side this rogue bends their actions. Many in this city see our Bug Vigilante as a hero, but I view them as the worst sort of villain. From this point,
said Mayor Tom,
I want to launch a grand investigation against the Bug Vigilante and bring them to justice. Your best is expected. It is vital that the Vigilante doesn't interfere with my...
Mayor Tom coughed.
mayoral duties.
Kyle raised his hand.
Yes, Kyle?
Said Mayor Tom.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, said Kyle. I know who the Bug Vigilante is. Does that change the nature of this investigation? Mayor Tom looked at Kyle, his mouth hanging open a small bit. It's my neighbor Gabby, continued Kyle. I mean, if you want, I can call her right now. Mayor Tom ran past Kyle and out of the office. Kyle heard him shouting to some detectives that he needed help.
Huh.
When the detectives and Mayor Tom arrived at Gabby's apartment, the door was ajar. Everything inside had completely vanished, including Gabby herself. The detective force scanned the area for any signs of the Bug Vigilante, but found nothing. Gabby had escaped. Over the next few months, warrants were put across the city for any sighting of Gabby. However, she was never seen. The Bug Vigilante slowly faded from the public mind. Eventually, not even Mayor Tom was looking for her. Kyle continued his detective work. He was proud for having solved such a high-profile case. But deep down, Kyle felt like he had missed something very important.
Huh.
Kyle thought today. Kyle. Mayor Tom.
Detective.
Mayor. Kyle. Kyle thought about...
Oh, no.
I think I would like to conduct...
Okay.
Kyle decided what question...
I didn't mean to click this one.
Kyle thought about what is... I want to...
Okay, we're at the crosswalk.
Kyle decided how he wanted to conduct his investigation.
And now we do it with taste.
Kyle crouched on the ground and started licking everything around him. Bit by bit, Kyle began to gain information about the Bug Vigilante. The Bug Vigilante was an older woman. She lived in an apartment not unlike Kyle's own. As Kyle continued to taste, he became more confident in his conclusions. But then, suddenly, Kyle realized something horrible. As he continued to taste the ground, swallowing dust and bugs, would he accidentally swallow the Bug Vigilante? Kyle stumbled backward, horrified he had not thought of this sooner. Had he already swallowed the Bug Vigilante? Was the case now unsolvable? Kyle decided that for the case to remain being solvable, he would need to make sure nobody did anything to solve it. Kyle ran to City Hall. He burst into the detective office, panting heavily. Detectives! Kyle screamed, "We must not lose!" Kyle began ravenously swallowing every detective in the building so they couldn't investigate the bug vigilante. Soon, Kyle had deconstructed the entire detective force, but he was not finished. Kyle realized that he himself would need to be contained from investigating the case as well. Kyle stretched his arms out very wide, wider than he ever had before. Kyle began wrapping his arms around himself time and time again, slowly forming a large ball. Within a few minutes, Kyle resembled a large spaghetti-like mass. He was no longer able to move.
He became the flying
Kyle
spaghetti
became a
monster?
roadside attraction alongside the likes of giant rubber band balls and petting zoos. Families traveling through the city would stop to admire the detective mass and use the restroom before traveling on. Although Kyle couldn't move, he was happy. He had saved the city from losing the case of the bug vigilante. The case was never solved.
Okay, we're gonna do one more.
Kyle decided it was time to investigate the mystery of the bug vigilante.
We're finally gonna
Mayor-
talk about the bear.
Mayor Tom froze.
Ah!
Kyle decided it was
Okay.
Ma-
Try not to skip
Mayor
it this
Tom-
time.
Kyle took
From this point, your best.
Mayor Tom, said Mayor
Well,
Mayor Tom
Okay.
fidgeted in his chair for a little while.
Ask about the bear.
Hey, since we're asking questions, said Kyle, I have another one about our first case together. Mayor Tom raised an eyebrow. Something was really fishy about the bear's appearance, said Kyle, like it was intended to be there. And then on a later case, we found that someone's pet bear had been let out of their cage intentionally. Rachel continued Kyle's thought. It almost seems like it was meant as a distraction for us, like something else was happening. Mayor Tom stood up from his chair.
this is ridiculous.
He said,
I can't have my detectives getting distracted by silly matters. I don't want you two thinking about anything but the bug vigilante. They are our only concern. If I hear anything more about using bears as bait for someone, I'll have you out on the street within a minute.
Mayor Tom, said Rachel, we didn't mention anything about the bear being bait. A short silence followed. Then Mayor Tom spoke, a bit softly.
Right, sorry, I got mixed up. Please continue your investigation of the bug vigilante. We will talk tomorrow.
Huh.
Mayor Tom walked out of his office, leaving Rachel and Kyle alone. Rachel turned to face Kyle. I think Mayor Tom knows something he's not letting on. Kyle nodded once. Let's meet back here later this evening and take a peek around, why don't we? Said Rachel. We can come back when everyone else is left and hopefully not run into any complications. The two agreed to meet back at City Hall late that night. In the meantime, they parted ways. Kyle returned to his apartment. It had been a long day. He decided to take a small nap before his meetup with Rachel. He would need all of his energy about him. Kyle lay down and fell asleep almost immediately. When he would awake, his detective story would be in its final chapter.
Ooh. Detective Cursor. Kyle napped. And with that, we will end. Ooh, we unlocked all the cursors now. Sweet. So all we have left is 2 backgrounds. Let's see. So main detective endings, there's that one. Then we have these mystery ones down here. But I think there was still one from up here. No? Huh. Okay. Well, we have about 6 endings left. Huh. Okay. This is going to be out of order, by the way, because the Christmas ones aren't going up until later. So, it's a little bit of out of order, but it's okay. In theory, there's 6 things left, but it's not technically the end. You guys don't get to see Christmas until I think December, which I think is all of these guys. So yeah, you're good. The next episode, we will finish Kyle's Detective. That's a weird thing to think about. So if you guys like it, hit that like button. Want to see more of my content? Hit the subscribe button, notification bell, all that fun jazz. I am very sorry that I'm doing all this when I'm sick. And I'm not talking a lot. I don't really talk a lot in my videos in general. It feels like, but it feels like even less during this. Check the description for my links at the game store page, game devs links as well. I'll see you guys next time. Kyle's will be finished. Well, the detective.